obviously, we have our Christmas Eve service coming up. So we're like in this limbo here on the 22nd of December. And yes, I will talk a little bit about solstice, which happened, I think, at 4:21 a.m. on Friday morning. Saturday morning. Saturday morning, yes, 4:21 a.m. That's what I get for telling you that without looking at my notes, which I do have it written down. So the song, What a Child, What a Night. You know, we have so much going on right now. It's Christmas, it's Hanukkah, it is solstice, and there are people that don't celebrate any of that. But I want to look at one of Margaret's lyrics in the song. It was the promise of a new day and the light within us all, right? It was the making of a new way. So for me, the idea of reborn was the idea of saying, there's something in me that promises whatever I declare, that promises whatever I choose to state is mine. The promise of a new day. The light within us all, that light, that energy, that creativity in me gives me the right to say, this is what I choose. So in this holiday season, I'm here to ask you all to choose one word, but my word, the word I'm going to give you. It's a 3-letter word. Anybody want to guess what it is? Joy. No. Fun. Who said fun? Oh, that's because you were in the circle. You're cheating. It's fun. Fun. Can you consider this holiday season as only fun? Fun only. Can you? Love only too, obviously. But fun only. What if you made a decision, laid an intention out that this Christmas, this Hanukkah, this solstice, this holiday season, I only have fun. Yeah. I am looking at a room with a lot of faces telling me, no, I want to have angst. It's the holidays after all. Rick Tamlin last night did in Palm Springs, which we will do on Christmas Eve. All the ministers got to speak for a few minutes about their favorite Christmas. And Rick Tamlin, it was like he was doing a stand-up comic routine on Saturday Night Live. It was so funny. I'm not going to even try to talk about it. But he talked about a Christmas night where he and his brothers came to his grandmother's house, but the whole house, of course, at that time was wrapped in plastic. He said it was like the house of the condoms. He said the couches were in plastic, everything was in plastic. He said, so, when everybody sat down, it was like a fart fest. He said people would sit down and you'd hear, and then they get back up. And he's telling this whole story about what Christmas was like that year. And his mother, who tended to drink a little bit, decided to have a smoke on the couch, dropped it, and of course went right through the plastic. And then the grandmother comes in, she's like, what are you doing? And he tells this whole story. And then he talks about the pies that came out of the oven, that every year they made the same pies. And he and his brothers would stand on the side of the room and go, "Whoom, whoom." And finally the grandmother said, what are you boys doing? And they said, well, that's what we have to get the chainsaws ready every year to cut through your crust. Yeah. So I just want to know that we have the most fun Christmas, because as children, we had fun Christmases, didn't we? Well, except for Eric Overholzer. Every year I say to Eric, you have to give us one of your most fun, amazing Christmas stories. He goes, I don't have any. So this year, you are finding some fun part of Christmas, yes? Okay. So, what a child, what a night. So the idea of this song, what a child, meaning of course the baby Jesus, what a night. Something happened on that night, right? Babies. What a baby, what a child. So last week when we all went Christmas caroling, we talked about that baby, that 1-week-old baby that was brought out of a house so that we could all Christmas carol to it. And I got to tell you, since I was in front And I saw, it was like 40 of us or 50 of us, and the baby came out, and then I went up to the baby to see the baby, but everybody started singing. I think we sang Silent Night. The change in demeanor in the 40 or 50 of you standing there singing, a baby changes people. A newborn baby turns everybody into mush mouth. I mean, you're always like, I mean, you suddenly stop thinking. You're just enamored with this beautiful, newborn, innocent. And you know what that's about? That's about you remembering yourself as that. It's about that relationship. So that's what and remember the moment in Lion King when they bring the baby, they bring Simba, and she just holds it up, and the whole community of animals just all bow down, and they're all like, and you hear it all. Of course, it's all that music, too, that makes you insane. But it's just such a beautiful moment. It's like this. Do you know what's happening at this moment? What's being sung?
Circle of life is a song.
Okay. It's the circle of life. Yeah, exactly. So that's the moment I'm looking for. That's the moment I want to live this whole season, that being reborn within myself. But we're also celebrating Hanukkah, and I want to talk about this for a minute. Because, when you look at Christmas and solstice and Hanukkah, it's not an accident that they all happen at the same time, that they all happen in the same season. And that's because everybody kind of co-opted everybody else's holiday so that you could all be at the same time. And Hanukkah, it actually celebrates something really fascinating. It celebrates rededication. So this idea of what a child, what a night, being reborn, rededicating yourself. It's the Maccabean Jews regaining control of Jerusalem and rededicating the temple. That's what Hanukkah is. And it talks about how, I was reading this morning, Hanukkah is a very minor Jewish holiday. It's like not really that important a Jewish holiday, except that they it happened during the Christmas season, so it became the biggest holiday for all the Jews, even though if you talk to a real Jew, they will tell you, this is not a big holiday. There are bigger holidays, lots bigger holidays. But you know what? The Christians will tell you the same thing. Christmas is a nice holiday, but what's the biggest holiday for Christians? Easter, because we're way more focused on death than life. But it's actually the resurrection, not really the death of Jesus. So, my talk title today is this. Oops, am I doing this, Thor, or are you doing it? I can do it. Oh, you can do it. Were you born in a barn? So, my mother used that expression a lot growing up. It was usually when we left something on the floor or we left the front door open in winter and the heat's going out. And it's like, what, were you born in a barn? And I remember one time I actually said to her, no, but Jesus was. Did not go over big. My mother had very good use of her back of her head really well. And it's interesting, too, because I told Kevin the title of my talk. I said, I'm going to give a talk called Were You Born in a Barn? He goes, that's not an expression. And I was like, it is an expression. And I know, right? Didn't you say that? Oh, now he's speechless. He speaks all the time. You said it was not an expression because you thought that was a different expression, like were you brought up in a barn or something like that. It's not. I looked it up for you.
Were you raised in a barn?
I have Google on my side. This says, were you born in a barn is a playful and teasing phrase using to point out someone's lack of manners and carelessness. Makes sense why my mother used it so often. It is not meant to be taken seriously or as a genuine insult. The phrase has developed over time and is used humorously. But what it's about, when we use it humorously, it's to point out all those things that we do that we seem to think aren't perfect. Your behaviors, right? So Jesus was born in a barn. This whole season, to me, of Reborn is about celebrating in myself that perfection. And that means looking at my life as perfect. Looking at everything in my life as perfect. How many of you can look at your life and easily see the things that did not go the way you wanted them to? All of us, right? Oh my God, don't they come up first? Yeah. What if everything you think you could point to actually was perfect? What if every aspect, everything that has happened during your life, everything that has unfolded was perfect? Well, that is the truth. So this whole season for me has been about what inside of me wants to be reborn again. What did I think wasn't perfect or that didn't happen the way I thought it should? Am I ready to do again? So Doug Draper read this at meditation today, but there were only about 10 of us there, so the rest of you get to hear it now. This is from Deepak Chopra. He said, rebirth is the process, Karen, is the process of self-discovery, realizing that you are not the past, but the potential for a radiant future. We are all that. We are all nothing but pure potentiality. And we are all, each one of us, ready to be reborn again with every intention we set, with every declaration we make, with every, what is the word? Rededication we make. So, I have questions for you, obviously. How many rebirths do you think you've had in your life? You, Andrea, millions. But think about that. How many times have you been reborn? How many rebirths have you had in your life? How many times have you reinvented yourself? Right? How many times have you reinvented yourself? Anybody never reinvent themselves? You're exactly who you were, are, and will be. Thank God. Thank God. So how many times have you rededicated yourself to something? Like a diet, or a project, or a relationship. We do it all the time. And then what happens? Something may come along and change us. This is one of my favorite quotes on that subject. I've had so many rebirths, I should come with my own midwife by now. So the question I have for you is, we've spent this whole month talking about being reborn and rebirthing. What are you ready for? What are you willing to turn yourself into by going back to who you authentically are in the first place? What are those passions you've had? What are those desires you have? What are those things you always anybody have their list of things you always meant to do? Things you always meant to get to? I always talk about how one of mine was playing the piano. But you know what I decided? Clearly it wasn't, because I've never learned how to really play the piano. Apparently I really just like hacking at the piano. But you know what? I'm good with that now. I'm really good with that. I've stood up here many times saying I'm going to start taking piano lessons. No, I didn't. And I didn't. I did. I took one. Remember, I went to that one piano lesson? I came back and said, this is not going to work for me. He's telling me what I'm doing isn't right, and no one does that. So he was like, you got to use your fingers a different way. I said, you got to use your mouth a different way. So that didn't work. But it was perfect. Exactly the way I learned to play the piano was perfect. So, so there is Christmas, there's Hanukkah, and then there's the solstice. And here's my note. It was yesterday, yes, on the 21st, at 4:21 a.m. Eastern time. So it was 1:21 in the morning here. And so I want to just read you about solstice. When the northern hemisphere tilts away from the sun, the longest night happens because the hemisphere is in its furthest point from the sun, and we have the shortest day of the year. Which means yesterday we had the shortest light. it was the least amount of light we've had all year. But you know what that also means? We had the longest rest. We had the longest time of, and I don't want to say darkness, but of calm, of peacefulness, of rebirth, of rededication. So in fact, yesterday in the solstice celebrated what we've been talking about all month, taking the time to really listen and hear what's inside of us. What do we want to do? Who do we want to be? How do we want to engage in our lives at this point? And so, another question I have for you. Oh, and what is it? It's the Arctic Circle. Apparently, in the Arctic Circle, there's no sun at the solstice. The sun does not rise in the Arctic Circle. Isn't that cool? You're all like, so? But I thought to myself, what an interesting concept. If the sun doesn't rise, then it's the light within that has to guide me. Yes? So it's that light that I have to pay attention to. So it's not just short day, long night, short night. It's, what are you doing? What are you doing with the light inside of you? So I have another question for you about this week we're about to step into. What traditions do you have that you will move through this week? Do you all have Christmas traditions, things that you do on Christmas? One of our new traditions is we have lasagna with the Draper family on Christmas Eve. Delicious lasagna that I'm sure you've already started making, right?
Sure.
Yeah, let's go with that. Yeah. And we had Christmas traditions growing up in Philadelphia. One of my favorite Christmas traditions, which Kevin killed for me, was that on the East Coast, how many people here are from the East Coast? So maybe tell me if you had, oh, you are too, that's right. I don't know how you guys missed it. So we put up the Christmas tree like the week before Christmas. You know, we'd go out and find a Christmas tree and put it up, but it didn't get decorated until Christmas Eve. Did anybody else decorate on Christmas Eve? Turn around, Kevin.
Oh, come on.
So the first Christmas, Kevin and I were together, which we always say, and he said yesterday in his share, was one of his favorite Christmases ever. We put up a real tree. We went out and bought a tree, and I'm not thinking we're decorating it because it's like a week before Christmas. And he's pulling out I'm like, Kevin, no, we decorate on Christmas Eve. He goes, absolutely not. We decorate as soon as the tree's bought. We need to celebrate Christmas starting right now, and it needs to be up all the way through. I said, no, it goes decorated on Christmas Eve, and it comes down the day after New Year's. And he was like, no, absolutely not. We decorate the minute we buy the tree, and it stays up probably till about the 15th of January. But, you know, the good news was it was that pink cloud period when we first fell in love, and I was easier to deal with back then. And I just went, oh, that'll be sweet. Okay, that's the new tradition. But then when we had kids, I decided it was time to reinstall my tradition with the children. And then when they were old enough to start decorating with us. And so we took a vote, remember? And I said, okay, guys, here's what I want to do this year. I want to put up the tree, and we will decorate it on Christmas Eve. To which point Will and Nora are both like, no, we have to have this up all the time. So I've lost at all times. So my question to you is, was I right or was he right? No, that's not the question. Doug, that was rhetorical. Kevin, yeah, thank you. But, you know, now I love it because now, you know, as soon as Thanksgiving happens, the tree's out and it's up. And our house, well, you all were at the house. Many of you were at the house last week. Our house is like a winter wonderland. There's not a surface that does not have a snowman or something on it that is Christmassy. And it is and our house, the front of our house. Funny story, quick story, because I do have more to say. When we first moved in, Kevin was in a Broadway show, and I had to decorate the house for Christmas out front. And our neighbors across the street, who are now dear friends but didn't know me very well, came over, and she's looking at the decorations. She went, you know, it's so interesting. Looking at your decorations, I'd never think you were gay. And I'm like, thank you? And the following year, Kevin did the decorations. She went, now you got it. Yeah. So with your traditions that you have, I do nothing at Christmas but enjoy. And now you will have it no other way. So what traditions do you have that possibly have become stale? That you just work through? You just do them because that's what you do. Because I'm here to ask you this year to reconsider it. Not reconsider the tradition, but to pay attention to, what's going on with the tradition, why it's there, why you're doing it, and are you having fun? So whether you celebrate a rededication or a rebirth, are you willing to keep in the front of your mind throughout this whole holiday season 3 little words? F-U, I just heard it myself. I'll say it faster. F-U-N. Fun. Wow, this is going where I'd never expected it. I guess what I'm really asking you this morning is this. Will you remember who you are? That child, on that night, when you get to the night of your celebration, whatever that is, will you remember who you are? Will you remember what you are? Will you remember why you're here? Will you remember that baby that was born thousands of years ago that really did create quite a stir in the world, in the zeitgeist, in this quantum field? Because whether you honor the birth of Jesus, whether you honor the story itself, whether you believe it ever happened, none of that matters as much as the impact whatever that was has had on our world. That love, and that's in her song as well. So I asked that question. One year I did a talk on who was that baby in the manger. And my answer now is, were you born in a barn? Yes, I was. Jesus was born in a barn. See, I was actually being very metaphysical back then. I did not deserve a slap. But were you born in a barn? Yes, Jesus was born in a barn. Jesus represents each one of us, all of us. So we were all born in a barn, so to speak. We were all born again when someone came along and supposedly told us to love one another. Not to create religions that fight one another, but to see one another as equal, to see one another as God. I am the Father. The Father is the I am. No difference. So finally, I just am here to ask you to rededicate yourself to fun this Christmas season, this holiday season, whatever season you're sharing. Rededicate yourself to the idea of enjoying your life, having fun. And that means you have to know what fun is. How many people know what fun is? Great. Then do it. If you know what fun is, it's time to have it. Right, Robbie?
Yes.
You know what fun is, right? Sure. What's fun for you? Playing the piano is fun, isn't it?
Sure it is.
Yeah? Good. So whatever that is for you, and because, someone has said something very profound about fun. Here it is. If you're not having fun, you're doing something wrong. Right? So let's do something right this holiday season. I think it's time for us to, what's the first lyric? Haul out the holly. What's the next lyric? Haul out the holly. Spirit falls again. Come on, you know it. 'Cause we need a little Christmas right this very minute. Candles in the window, carols at the spinet. Yes, we need, come on, Steve. Right this very minute, we need a little Christmas. That was fun, wasn't it? This is what we need. Spontaneous eruptions of fun and frolic and joy, and it doesn't matter what happens. I had a Christmas Eve where our Christmas tree was on fire at my grandmother's house. Yeah, and they all decided to throw their beer into the tree because we were Irish Catholic. So everybody had beer, and the beer went into the tree. You know what that did? Bigger fire. I still have that memory in my head. Now, that was fun. So whatever your idea of fun is, please, please, please decide, really rededicate yourself to having fun this Christmas, Hanukkah, solstice season. Because if you're not having fun, you are doing something wrong. Namaste.